Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is set to talk to us for the last time this season. And there are a few things that I think are very important to look for as he addresses the media before the offseason. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackmine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're in the offseason, but Mike Tomlin is set to talk to us for one final time before he begins his scouting and free agency and contract negotiations and the whole nine. And while it's still a Mike Tomlin press conference, and man, do I love Mike Tomlin press conferences, he said sarcastically, I expect a little bit more. I expect Mike Tomlin to come out here and give us some answers to some things, or at least a little bit of insight. I don't expect him to sit down and detail his upcoming contract negotiations or exactly who is going to be his quarterback in 2024, but I do expect him to give us some information, some thought, some insight to his brain on what direction the Steelers could face and where they're going to head this offseason, because right now there are no mysteries. Right now is not a time where head coaches hide their cards and say, well, we have to protect ourselves from the upcoming game. This one's different. This offseason press conference is more, hey, look, this is where we are. This is where we want to be. How do we get here? And he actually gives us some stuff. I mean, I remember back in the day when I knew Terrell Edmonds, was not coming back, just because I asked Mike Tomlin, hey, where do you stand with him? Do you think that he's an option in free agency? And he clear as day said, hey, look, we respect Terrell Edmonds, but we understand that this is a business and we understand that there will be other options for him. And I took that as, well, he's probably gone, and he ended up in Philadelphia. This is what I'm looking for as Mike Tomlin takes the podium one last time, the second last time that we'll get to talk to anybody in that locker room. We'll talk to Art Rooney before the big free agency begins, and then from there, we will head off and wait for the combine, when we will talk to Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin probably again, and then all the list of players who are or are not being scouted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is what I'm looking for as I head to UPMC Rooney Sports Complex for one final time this season. First is obviously Mike Tomlin's contract. He cannot walk away from the podium again. That is not a situation that will happen. I get it after the game. I still respect the question. I think it was a good question. I think it was a question that needed to be asked and eventually needed to be answered. That being said, I didn't expect it to be answered there. I do expect it to some degree to be answered in this press conference. I don't expect him to sit down and detail what's going to happen and whether or not he's going to sign a contract negotiation. I'm just looking for him to say, I will be back in 2024, and I have all the intentions of being back in 2024. I think that's significant. I think that is enough. Not that I don't believe the reports from Jerry Dulac or Mike Garofalo. It's just that when it comes out of his mouth specifically, that's it. There is no more speculation. There are no more rumors. There are no more anything. Mike Florio could stop talking about how there's still a slim chance that he could get traded or that he could walk away, and stop trying to come up with headlines because there's nothing else to talk about. Mike Tomlin, once that comes out of his mouth, which I expect it to come out of his mouth, it's all over. Mike Tomlin returns in 2024, and we heard it from the tree itself. Second is the quarterback situation. I do not expect Mike Tomlin to come in here, sit down, or stand up and say, hey, Kenny Pickett is our guy or Mason Rudolph is our guy. And if he does do that, thank you, Mike Tomlin, because wow, is that some insight? That is incredible, but also it is certainly jumping the gun on what is a very long offseason and plenty of options, whether through free agency, the NFL draft, or just the guys that you have right now or need to re-sign in Mason Rudolph. If he comes in there and says, hey, Kenny is our guy in 2024, I don't think there are a lot of people that are super excited about that. And I honestly think that a lot of people in the locker room are going to be a little upset that they're only looking for one option. I think that they need more options. And I think a lot of players, a lot of people in the front office agree with that one. And maybe Mike Tomlin does as well. we will hear something. Again, I do not expect it to be, hey, Kenny is our guy, or, oh, Mason is our guy, or we will draft somebody with the 20th pick in the draft. I don't expect any of that. I just expect Mike Tomlin to address the quarterback situation to some degree and leave it an open-ended question where we at least have an idea of whether or not they're going to dig deep, or whether or not they are very satisfied with Mason Rudolph and we can get an idea that maybe he is their top option, or whether or not they are sticking to their guns and giving Kenny Pickett the ball next season, and that will be their option. The next is also the inside linebacker situation. You have a lot of injuries. You have a lot of guys coming back. You don't know where everybody stands, but I kind of want to know whether or not Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts are viewed as your guys next season. If Mark Robinson showed you enough to be the third, if Miles Jack is a guy that you are going to consider bringing back, or if you're going to head into free agency and look for other options. Miles Jack told me that he hopes he comes back, that he hopes he gets another season in the NFL, but that's not up to him. That's up to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the 31 other teams in the league. I want to know if the Pittsburgh Steelers have their guys, have found their guys to some degree, and if that is a position that they are going to look at and say, look, we already have this filled, and if everybody could stay healthy, which I believe if everybody did stay healthy, it was a great position for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're good to go. Because at that point, you could look at other positions. And an inside linebacker isn't going to take up your first-round pick. It's not going to take up your second-round pick, but it could take up your third-round pick. It could take up your fourth-round pick, and those are valuable picks. Those are picks where maybe you find another depth piece on the offensive line. Maybe you find another wide receiver. Maybe you find, I don't know, a defensive end or an outside linebacker to replace Marcus Golden after this season, or another safety to make that deeper, or a cornerback option. There are a billion possibilities. Maybe you find a quarterback. Who knows? But I want to know if inside linebacker is taken care of, or if it's just another opportunity or another position that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to evaluate as they head into the offseason. Broderick Jones is the next piece to the puzzle here. Is he going to continue to play right tackle? Is he going to move back to left tackle? What's the outlook on Dan Moore Jr.? Do you search for a left tackle or a right tackle, in the offseason? What about Mason Cole? Are you satisfied with Mason Cole? Again, I don't expect any of these answers to be laid out in front of us, but I expect us to get an idea, and I expect Broderick to be the easiest way to find that idea. If Mike Tomlin walks up to a podium and says, hey, it's ideal for Broderick to move to left tackle next season, then we have an understanding that maybe they're going to move on from Dan Moore Jr., or at least try to find a starting right tackle so that they can move Broderick back to the left side and make Dan their backup left tackle. Maybe that's the situation. But I think that's the easiest way to evaluate right now from what we're going to get out of Mike Tomlin. Hey, how do you view the offensive line? What changes do you want to make on the offensive line? I think it all starts with Broderick Jones, and that's the easiest way to get inside Mike Tomlin's head when it comes to this situation. And then finally, Naji Harris and his fifth-year deal, his fifth-year extension. I don't know. I went back and forth on this all year. I think where I stand right now is you do sign Naji to a fifth-year extension, or the fifth-year option, I think it makes sense. I don't know if he gets a contract after that one, which is tough for Naji Harris. But I also don't think that you head into next season with the possibility that he just leaves and then you got to draft another running back, and then boom, you're looking at Jaylen Warren as your only guy. And don't get me wrong, I think Jaylen Warren is a phenomenal football player, and I think that Jaylen Warren should be the guy that takes more of the reps during games because he's more of an explosive athlete. And Najee's a guy that's ground and pound, and he comes up with big runs, but he comes up with big runs more often when Jaylen Warren is on the field more often. That being said, I don't know if you're going to find anything better than the 1-2 punch that you currently have. I don't think you want to upset Naji Harris with 2 years left on his deal or 1 year left on his deal. I don't think you're going to re-sign him to a long-term deal, so there doesn't make sense there. You might as well pick up the fifth-year option and see if he is a guy that you're going to keep around for 2 more years, because, again, you don't have to keep him in that fifth-year option if he's not worth it. Even if it is guaranteed, somebody will make a trade for a running back, especially a running back that has gone 3,000-yard seasons in a row, could be 4 by the time that is up. I want to know their thoughts on that. Will we get them? I think that is the biggest long shot. I think Naji Harris and a contract talk is that's the farthest stretch that as a journalist we could get out of the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they'll probably just tell you we do not talk about contract extensions during press conferences. I've heard that a billion times, and I'll hear it a billion times more. But I want to ask, and I want to find out if there's any early thoughts on Naji Harris. But as we head into one final Mike Tomlin press conference, you're looking for 5 things. Those 5 things, they're not going to be laid out in front of us. They're not going to be easy to identify, but we will get some insight. We will get some answers on everything, and we'll have a general understanding of where the Pittsburgh Steelers head into the offseason, how they view this team, how they view some contracts, and how they view some positions that are probably positions of need super early in the offseason. All important pieces. You're going to have to piece the puzzle together. But for one last time, and plenty of months after this to figure it all out, I think we have time to piece that puzzle together.